She dangled by one wrist from a wagon's broken rib, the rawhide bit through skin as the wind worried her dress. Dust tasted like ash on her tongue. A paper tag, "Mail," flapped against her collarbone. Calder Boone reined in when he saw her. The morning had come up pale over the flats, a skim of frost silvering the greasewood, the air sharp enough to bite. His sorrel snorted ghost steam. Coyotes were giving up their night songs. The valley smelled of cold iron and old sage. She didn't look at him at first, too intent on breathing through pain. The wagon lay on its side like a toppled rib cage. One wheel spun lazy. A trunk spilled under things, a small Bible, a stitched sampler that read, "Hope endures." Down in the creek bed, a mule lay broken-legged, head tipped awkward, one ear flicking. "Hey there," Calder said softly, voice like low creek water. He slid down, boots crunching hoarfrost, hat shadowing his eyes. "Don't spook. I'm here." She flinched anyway when he palmed his pocket knife. Her breath came tight and white. He saw fear before he saw her face, the way her shoulders knotted, the way she tried to become smaller without space to do it. Then her eyes found him, river dark, rimmed red from grit, and he felt a jolt he hadn't expected, as if something in him recognized something in her. "May I?" He raised the knife where she could see it. She gave a small nod, jaw clenched. He cut the rawhide, caught her by the waist when she dropped, and set her on her feet slow as pouring molasses. Her skin was cold under his hands. He took them away like backing out of a stall with a skittish mare. "Where'd you come from?" he asked. She glanced at the tag still pinned to her dress, and with stiff fingers ripped it free. "The North," she said, voice sandpaper rough. "A train to Cheyenne, then a coach, then this." She swallowed, winced. "I'm meant for a ranch near Arroyo Blanco." Calder knew the name. Everyone did. The Darlin spread drank up half a county and gave little back. Men there kept their hats low and their rifles high. He didn't say that. He said, "You're freezing." His coat came off in one shrug, wool warm from his body, the smell of horse and soap and wood smoke woven in. He draped it over her shoulders without touching skin. She stiffened, then let it be. "What's your name?" "Eliza Witt." She said it like she was testing it for cracks. "You?" "Calder." A raven barked from a cottonwood. The sun climbed and threw hard gold on everything broken. Calder watered his horse, then returned with his canteen. Eliza tried to drink too fast. He tipped it back gentler. Water ran from the corner of her mouth, and she swiped it with the back of her hand in a quick, embarrassed motion. He saw the marks then, old ones, faded, that ran like pale ropes along her forearms, where her sleeves had ridden up. Not the day's wounds. History. She tugged the cuffs down. He looked away as if he hadn't seen. "Wagon throw you?" She shook her head. "Men?" she said simply. "Two. They rode up at dusk. Asked what a mail-order bride fetches these days." Her mouth twisted. "They laughed when I told them I was already promised." Heat climbed Calder's neck. He kept his voice even. "They hurt you." "Not for lack of trying." She squared her shoulders, a brittle motion that tried to pass for strength. "I bit one's thumb to the bone. The other kicked the wheel and the whole rig went. They took the mule team, left me a note." She handed him a scrap, crude letters scrawled in pencil. "Come collect your bride at Miller's Gulch. We'll be waiting." Calder ran his thumb along the paper's rough edge. It smelled of stale tobacco and sweat. He pictured Miller's Gulch, a slit of a place, cottonwoods whispering, a cold spring that tasted metallic, man-high brush, and not enough law. "How far can you walk?" he asked. "Far." The word came quick, pride bristling. Then she swayed. Calder didn't reach for her. He held out his forearm. "Here." She hesitated, then set her hand there light as a bird. Her fingers were chapped, nails bitten to moons. He led her to the creek, bathed the rawhide cut with water cold enough to sting. She hissed air between her teeth but didn't pull away. He tore a strip from his undershirt and bound her wrist, his fingers moving careful, knuckles brushing once against the thin blue map of veins. "You got folk waiting?" he asked. She looked at the wrecked trunk. "Letters," she said. "His name is Nathan Darlin. He wrote of a White House and a windmill and peach trees, of a bed I could call mine and a life where no one shouted. A humorless sound left her. He paid for the ticket. Calder pictured the Darlin men again and kept his face blank. "We should get you to shelter," he said. "My place is an hour if we cut across the flats." She went still. "Your place?" "A cabin," he said. "One room and a porch that sags in the middle. I got coffee and beans and a stove that stays honest. No one will come looking." He didn't add, "Not for me, not anymore." She weighed him with those river eyes. The wind tugged hair from her pins, and it made a dark banner across her cheek. "Do you mean me harm?" she asked finally, as one might ask the weather to be kind. He let the question sit between them. "No," he said, "I mean to be useful." A long beat, then a small nod. "Then I will walk." They started slow. The sun burned off the frost, and the earth went from iron to damp. A meadowlark stitched gold notes through the brush. Eliza wore his coat like borrowed courage. Twice she stumbled on rock hidden under grass. Twice she caught herself before he could. He said nothing, but he matched his stride to hers. When the cabin showed, a square of shadow tucked into a cottonwood stand, her shoulders sagged. The air smelled of old pine boards and last night's coffee. Inside was neat. A narrow bed, a peg for his hat, a table with a scar like a river through it, a shelf of tin plates and dulled cutlery. He put coffee on the stove and beans in a pot with bacon ends. Grease popped. The room warmed. He set a bowl in front of her with a spoon that had belonged to his mother and stepped back, palms open. No threat here. She watched him in the old way of the hunted, measuring exits, the distance to the door, then took a first, careful bite. Salt, smoke, fat. She closed her eyes, and a tremor went through her like something loosening. "Thank you," she said after the second spoon. She took small bites, steady, as if afraid the food might vanish if she loved it too much. Steam lifted from her hair where snowmelt had dried. Her cheeks found color. Calder busied himself with nothing. He adjusted a lamp that didn't need it. He moved a boot scraper 2 inches to the left. "You can have the bed," he said. "I'll take the porch. It squeaks something awful. I'll keep the door hooked." "I have slept in worse places than a bed," she said dryly, and something like a ghost of humor crossed her mouth. He made a pallet on the porch anyway. The wind sang in the chinks. He listened to the stove settle and the faint shift of her weight on the mattress. Sleep came in ropey knots. Just before dawn, a horse snorted beyond the cottonwoods. Then another. Saddles creaked, voices carried. Low and sure, men used to land taking orders from them. Calder reached for the rifle he kept by the door. Eliza sat up in the cabin, breath held, the coat clutched to her chin. Boots hit the ground. Morning came knife-bright. Calder poured coffee with calm hands that didn't match his pulse. Eliza sat on the bed's edge, braid tied with a rag, his coat around her like a fort. Outside, men settled their horses. Spurs found dirt. A laugh cut short. "You reckon he'll hand her over civil?" a voice asked. "If he's smart," another said. "Darlin paid." Calder opened the door into cold light. 3 riders waited. The middle one wore a fine coat like a costume, moustache trimmed to needles. "Name's Pierce," he said. "I serve Mr. Nathan Darlin. You have something belongs to him." "Do I?" Calder said. Pierce's smile didn't reach his eyes. "A bride. She strayed. We're here to retrieve what's paid for." Eliza stood in the doorway behind Calder. The word retrieve drew her chin higher. Calder kept his gaze on Pierce. "She was left to freeze," he said. "She's not a parcel." "Mr. Darlin will consider your editorializing a breach," Pierce said. "Fetch her." Calder let the rifle rest on the porch post. "No." The hands shifted in their saddles. "Don't be foolish," one said. "She's spoken for." "By herself," Calder said. "Or ain't she a person? She's a contract." Eliza's voice came even. "I will go if I choose," she said, "but I will not be fetched." Pierce's smile thinned. "There is a room prepared." "I have had rooms," she said. "They don't keep men out." Calder felt the choice arrive. He could step aside and keep his roof, or he could stand. He said, to her, not to Pierce, "If you want me to tell them no, I will." She met his eyes and nodded. He faced Pierce. "No." Pierce's voice cooled. "We know your name, Boone. Your debts. Your land. Stubborn makes you dead." "I was born once already," Calder said. Pierce lifted 2 fingers. "By sundown," he said. "If she isn't at the Darlin gate, this place becomes a lesson." They rode off slow. Inside, Calder leaned his brow to the door a moment. Eliza stood with the coat clutched. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "It was for me," he said. "I want to look myself in the eye later." They prepared like folks before a storm. He fixed the back latch. She washed cups until they squeaked. He stacked wood. She mended his shirt, stitches small and sure. Talk bridged the quiet. He told her about saving a fevered mare with willow bark tea. She said she once read books over the clatter of looms. "Jane Eyre," she admitted, half embarrassed. "I'd listen to you read a fence post," he said, and her laugh startled both of them. At dusk, Coyote stitched the ridge. Eliza watched the sky bruise. "I did have people," she said. "My father sold me at 14 to wipe a debt. The man prayed loud after. Left the door open. When he died, I feared the next man." Calder didn't crowd her with pity. "What did you do?" "Sewed until my back burned," she said. "Saved coins in my hem. Read scraps. Saw a poster, wives wanted, passage paid. I thought an honest bargain might hurt less." He sat on the step below hers. "I fought for paper freedom," he said. "Then watched land get sold with the same ink. Came west for mercy. Sometimes it's only distance." "Do you think Darlin is kind?" she asked. "He writes kindly. Men can write with gloves and ride with spurs," he said. "I don't know him. I know his men's eyes." She didn't move when her braid brushed his shoulder. "If I don't go, what then? I have no paper but his." "You have the right that comes with being a person on the earth," he said. "I'll stand by it till it reads clear." She touched his shoulder, light as blessing. "Thank you." They ate by lamplight. He showed her his mother's flower-tin pistol. She learned its bite and balance. The steadiness returned to her hands. At the door she said, "If I choose not to go, you'll be in danger because of me. I'll be in danger because of men who like owning," he said. "Their danger isn't yours to carry." She turned sudden. "If I asked you to take me as your wife, no paper, would you?" "Yes," he said raw, "but not as a cage, as yourself." She cupped his jaw. "I haven't been kissed without being counted," she whispered. "May I try?" He bent slow. Their mouths met. A brush, a question. The world returned changed, and the same. Hooves thumped. Shadows slid along the cottonwoods. Pierce called, honeyed and cold. "Evening." "We brought the minister, the paper, and friends who dislike no." Eliza and Calder stood shoulder to shoulder. Their joined shadows stretched long on the back wall, like a promise not yet spoken. The day moved in small mercies. He brewed a second pot just to warm the room. She tried his coat without flinching. She let him check the bandage and didn't apologize for the wince. When he set bread and apple butter on a plate, she ate, then pushed half back to him with a look that said fairness mattered. She found his mother's sampler in a drawer. "God keep us honest." She touched the faded floss like someone greeting a friend of a friend. "Did you have a mother who spoke plain?" she asked. "She wasted no words," he said. "Taught me to tie a calf and to tell the truth even when it got mud on the floor." Eliza smiled sideways. "Mine taught me to vanish," she said. "I got very good at it. Then I decided vanishing is a trick, not a virtue." They walked the yard once, testing her ankle. The cottonwoods hissed. A hawk's shadow slid across the ground and Eliza flinched, then made herself stand still until the shadow passed. She exhaled and looked faintly proud of herself. He told her about the winter he nearly froze packing salt to a neighbor, how he built a fire with one hand while the other didn't want to work. "I learned hands will lie if you let them," he said. "You have to talk them into usefulness." She almost reached for his injured hand before tucking hers back under the coat. "What do you talk your heart into?" "Mostly patience," he said. "Sometimes hope." "I have been rationing hope like sugar," she said. "It spoils if you hoard it." In the quiet that followed, he noticed a tear in her shoe, the kind that lets in snowmelt. He stitched it neat while she read aloud from his only novel. Pages foxed, corners soft. Her voice filled the walls with rooms. He looked at her mouth moving around vowels and thought a man could live on bread and that sound a long time. As sunset laid copper on the stove, she stood with the pistol again. He corrected her stance once by nudging her heel with his boot, not his hand. "You keep making room for me to be a person," she said. "It's a good habit," he said. Shadows lengthened. She spoke the rest of her story in pieces, as if laying planks across a muddy place. She told him about the factory foreman who liked to fold cloth with hands that wandered, how she learned to keep pins between her lips so her hands stayed busy. About the night a fire took half the dormitory, and the women ran in shifts with buckets while the men counted bolts. "I didn't lose anything but sleep," she said, "but I lost some faith." Calder listened and gave back his own small failures. At time he looked away when a neighbor boy caught a beating that didn't belong to him. The month he sold his father's watch to pay a note and never wrote his sister to admit it. "We're not exhibits," he said softly when he was done. "We're people who kept walking." "We are," she said, and stood closer without saying it. When night settled for true, he showed her how to hook the door and where to tuck the key. She laughed at the notion of a key and then held it like a charm. "If they come again," she said, "and I am afraid, remind me I asked you to say no." "I will," he said, "and if I am afraid, remind me you survived before me." Her mouth found his again, uncounted. It lasted longer. It changed where the air lived in the room. "We run," Eliza said. "We fight," Calder said. They grinned like fools and did both. In minutes, doing replaced fear. Table to the door, lamp turned low. Rifle in his hands, pistol in hers. "Back window," he said, "willow wash, dry arroyo to the bluffs." A shot cracked, wood spat. Another rang the stovepipe. Smoke coughed. They slid through the window into cold. She crouched, pistol steady. He rolled, came up running, pain stitching his old scar. Men hit the porch, the table held. They ran bent through cottonwood shade, frost crunching. Moonlight laid a pale road. At the wash, they dropped to sand. 2 riders ghosted the lip. Eliza aimed, exhaled slow, waited. The shadows slid on. They crawled, then ran. The arroyo offered a deer trail up a mean wall. Calder led, finding holds, turning to give his forearm. Her skirt tore. She let it. Fabric whispered like grass burning. Halfway up, a shot. Rock spat. Heat licked his ribs. "You're hit," she breathed. "A scratch that thinks it's a story," he said. "Climb." They reached a narrow shelf. Choices, open bluff, pinyon thicket, a keyhole slot. "Slot," he said. "Easy to guard." Stone breathed cold. Blood slicked his side. She pressed a torn strip there, fierce and calm. "I won't let you bleed alone." Below, Pierce called, cool as ledger ink. "Boone, you're making a sermon out of a footnote." "I like my sermons honest," Calder shouted back. A rider lunged for the slot. Eliza's pistol barked. Spur sparked rock. "I don't miss twice," she called. Time stretched thin. Cold found bone. Doubt nosed in. She leaned to his ear. "If you die, I'll pull you back by your hair," she whispered. He laughed, and the laugh helped. Shadows crept. Pierce sent men wide. Eliza touched Calder's cheek. For luck. She slipped out along the lip, found a flat stone cupped in granite, lifted, dropped when a rider edged under. Stone hit saddle, then collarbone. The horse blew apart the careful hunt. Calder stepped out, not heroic, out of rooms to back into. He fired once. A hat flew. He aimed to make men remember other work. Pierce faced him, fine coat foolish in dust. "This isn't romance," he said. "It's paperwork." He raised his pistol. Eliza's voice came from behind him. "He offered me a choice. I choose him." Pierce flinched. His shot sparked stone. Calder's bullet tore through Pierce's gun hand. Metal rang. "Enough," Calder said. "Tell Dolan to bring every paper in Cheyenne. We don't sign away people." "He'll come himself," Pierce hissed. A deeper voice. "He's here." A single rider eased from pinions. Nathan Dolan, hard mouth, weighing eyes. He measured the 3 of them. "Miss Witt," he said, "you will be unsafe with this impulse." Eliza stepped into Moonstripe. "Unsafe is a room with a door I cannot lock," she said. Unsafe is a man who thinks a woman is an invoice. I crossed a country to be soil. I choose to be weather. Darlin calculated, then lifted his reins. We don't waste men on stubborn rocks, he said. Boone, you just bought enemies. He turned. Pierce, stop the bleeding. They rode off, fury leashed. Silence opened. Calder sagged. Eliza pressed her forehead to his temple, breaths sinking. We're not finished, she said, but we're not owned. At dawn, they picked the long way home. The door hung busted. The table lay on its side. The stove could be righted, coffee could be brewed, a bed made again. She stitched him with hem-hardened hands. He hissed, gripped the frame, grinned when she told him to hush. They talked plain. Leave the cottonwoods. Go where Dolan's reach thins. Work a patch no one wants. Marry under sky, find a preacher later. 2 months on, spring loosened the ground. A small house rose by a slow, wide river. Calico curtain for a door. New nails bright. The porch sagged like porches do, this one their way. At night she read, fence post or Bronte. He whittled a toy horse for a someday child. He planted 3 peach saplings because letters dared him. She kissed the cut on his thumb. Shelves held more cups than 2 people need. They meant to have company. A neighbor woman arrived with preserves. I heard you told Darlin no, she said. I heard you need hands for lambing, Eliza answered. That's how a neighborhood starts. 2 women naming what they want. Storms came hard. They stood in the doorway and let rain sheet their faces. Weather, she'd say. I choose where I fall. He'd answer, with me. One lavender evening, he pressed a silver coin into her palm. A ring when we find a smith who won't sneer, he said. Till then, keep the bright. She closed and opened her hand, like teaching it a new habit. I want to live as your wife, she said, each word a bell. Not because paper says so, because I do. A week later, a mule-born preacher married them under cottonwoods. The vows were bred simple. They traded a coin and a whittled ring. The preacher blessed them with a smile that sounded like envy. Years pivoted. The house learned stew in autumn, lilacs in spring. A cradle swung from ceiling hooks with a calming rhythm. Eliza taught porch reading to neighbor kids. Calder traded fence mending for books with covers soft from other hands. Late summer, peaches blushed. Eliza's belly rounded with next. They sat by the river, toes in mud, dusk dragging slow. Frogs stitched sound in reeds. Fingers linked on a blanket. The coin warmed her palm. Miss the life you thought you were buying? He asked. She watched the river decide. I bought a ticket, she said. I found a voice. She leaned on his shoulder. I fell where I chose. Together, they watched the river take the day slow. Stars blinked on like loyal neighbors. Peach leaves turned their pale undersides and whispered, if this story set a steady warmth in you, stay. Subscribe for more desert legends. Quiet bravery, hard-won love, vows the wind can carry a long way. They hid the coin and 2 letters in her trunk under the sampler. He took the rifle sling and looped it over his shoulder so his hands were free to catch her if she stumbled. She saved her bullets and saved her breath and saved nothing of herself for later. On the shelf between shots, he said the words and meant them. If I don't climb, you go. If you don't climb, she said, I will grow talons. After Darlin rode off, they counted cartridges and cut away the blood-stiff cloth. He let her see the wince because respect is also honesty. She let him see the tremble after because courage is not the absence of shaking. Leaving took a day. They packed beans, flour, coffee, the pistol, the Bible, the sampler, 3 peach switches wrapped in burlap, and the coin under a bread heel. He nailed a note to the splintered door for anyone who came looking with decency. Gone west. Do not trade people here. The road west was a series of small choices that became a life. They slept under a sky so clean it made new vows easy. They learned the sound of each other's steps in dark and could tell fear foot from hurry foot. On the river place, Calder built the porch twice, because the first time it didn't look like a welcome. Eliza painted the door with leftover wagon paint and smiled at the ridiculous hopeful color. Neighbors waved from distance the first week and from the fence by the third. When the mule preacher came, he ate stew and called their rings foolish and perfect. He blessed them, and Eliza said, "We'll take it as it comes." Calder tucked the coin in a jar that also held 6 nails, 2 buttons, a peach pit, and the kind of luck you make by showing up daily. After harvest, they sent a pie to a widow 3 bends down. The widow sent back a jar of stories that tasted like laughter. Eliza listened and said, "We are not alone," and the house agreed with a creak that sounded like yes.